Hey, what's up, film fans, film friends, and people who enjoy watching this random guy talk about film and anything else that I talk about. But yeah, thank you so much for joining another episode of Film Stock Tryouts, episode 22, I think. Can't believe I made it through 22 of these, and I've gained some friends along the way. So yeah, today you've obviously seen in the thumbnail, or maybe read it if I've shared this on Instagram or Threads or wherever. Kodak TMax 100, black and white panchromatic film, the little brother to the very popular and very brilliant TMax 400. So TMax 100 is a firm favorite of mine, with incredibly sharp images with a very, very fine grain. Kodak says it's the finest grain on 100 speed black and white film. I shot a whole bunch of rolls of this film in my Canon new F1, and that doesn't mean that it's a new camera. It's actually older than 40 years. I got it secondhand, but it's the new F1, the newer of the F1 series. I also shot some in my Yashica diary. The Canon is a professional grade or professional level SLR, which I paired with my excellent 50mm FD f1.8 lens, incredibly sharp, nifty lens, the nifty 50, and we still use them today in digital photography. And I made some really cool, beautiful, stunning, insert adjectives here, images with them. The Yashica is a lesser known semi-automatic point and shoot with little to no control over image exposure. You can't choose the aperture, you can't choose the shutter speed. You put in a roll of film, you tell the camera what the speed is that you want to shoot at, and then you kind of just hope that the camera makes up or chooses decent settings. And you also have very minimal control over precise focus. You can't pull focus on it. It has focus zones, and I think it has 3. It has very close by, so close-up portrait, medium range portrait, then further away portrait, and the mountain. Those are the icons. So it doesn't have all that much in terms of absolutely pulling focus on exactly what you want. You kind of have to guess, which I mean is fun, but it also sometimes doesn't give you the greatest results. Although there are some points to this particular film stock where that's actually not that much of a problem, and I'll get to that later on. So yeah, the images that I took on my Canon new F1 do tend to be sharper and just seem better overall in focus and exposure. So I'm going to primarily use those images for this video. If it's not a image shot on the Canon, I will be sure to let you know with a little comment thingy on the side. So let's get rolling. TMax 100 is a very friendly black and white film. And by that, I don't mean it invites you in for a cuppa on a cold winter's day. What I mean is it has an incredible exposure latitude that helps a great deal when under or overexposing. And as I shot a few rolls of this TMax when I was just getting used to my Canon and just getting used to getting exposure and how film works, particularly black and white film, I made a few mistakes, overexposed a bunch of shots, underexposed a bunch of shots, experimented with exposures, and every image I still managed to get back a full roll and then some of decent images. Some of them are maybe not exposed perfectly, and the others maybe were exposed really, really well, but at least what I did get back was images that I could make out, and there was enough detail in the highlights and the shadows where I wanted, and it still looked beautiful. It just felt alive to me, and I really enjoy that and appreciate that about this film. And as you'll be seeing, some of the images go across over this video. It is also friendly towards those like myself at the time, like I was just saying, still figuring out how zone focusing works. I was still trying to do zone focusing as well on the Canon and also on the Yashica, more so on the Yashica, although the Canon also does have you can zone focus with any lens it has the distances. So it renders exceptional clarity across the whole image, and if shot in bright conditions, you can use the Sunny 16 rule, which can almost guarantee that you'll get images that greet you with the warmth of an old friend. TMax 100, obviously it's not a super fast speed film, it's a medium to slow speed film, so it's not for low light, but if you're shooting within sunlight and you can stop down to like f8 or something, you're going to get a lot in focus and the clarity is going to be beautiful. Then moving on, TMax 100 has a very broad resolution and is brilliant for printing, and that's something I definitely recommend, is printing your images if you can, whether you have a printer at home or if you can send it to a nearby print shop to get some stuff. Definitely print your photos. So it's brilliant for printing and blowing up images to much larger scales, and actually it's commonly used for copying or making black and white copies from color transparencies, and that's because of the great resolution that it has, and the detail that the film manages to retain. The great resolution is useful when making images with smaller details that you'd like to see at larger sizes than on a phone screen. And yeah, just again, seeing images on a phone screen on a device really does not do anything for the image. You need to see them on paper, just a photo book, seeing other people's work on photo books, or seeing your own work printed and you can feel it, and just the experience, the tactile experience is a whole nother world. So I encourage you guys, print your images, or print images of the people that you really like. Buy prints, support people who are making art, taking photos, and yeah, let's keep each other encouraged, I guess. So kind of just in my concluding thoughts, TMax 100 is a film I always want a couple of rolls of in my fridge and in my film bag. It performs really well for street, portraiture and architecture, as well as abstract photography. Kodak even says it's excellent for photomicrography. There we go. Maybe it's because I'm saying it in the flat South African. Maybe if I say it American, photomicrography. Still difficult. Yeah, try to say that. It does really well in retaining fine details in the images. Yeah, photomicrography is using a microscope to take photos. So obviously it has to do really well in retaining very fine detail. It also performs well across a variety of lighting conditions, even though it's a slower speed film. And like some of these shots that I'm going to show you now, I took some shots in the direct bright sunlight. Well, that English is incorrect. I took some shots in direct bright sunlight, and I got some awesome results where you can still see obviously the overexposed areas of the sun, but you can still make out details in the highlights and the shadows. You can make out some of the clouds, the sun's individual rays and the buildings. And I took some shots in very low light handheld with some beautiful results as well. And I was trying there just to experiment. I know I wasn't using exactly the correct film for it, but I wasn't necessarily trying to capture too much detail in the shadows. I was trying to kind of draw out some contrast in the scene. So we were driving in a Didi or a Uber here in China through a tunnel, and I wanted to take some shots of the lights and the how they lead through the tunnel. So that's what I did, and I did it handheld, and I actually, according to my camera and most, underexposed severely because there's no light in there, and it's also 100 speed film, so I would have to handhold for like 4 seconds to get a proper exposure, but I was handholding at 1/30th of a second. So yeah, just take a look at the images and see that if you use it stylistically, overexposure, underexposure can work out really, really well. And then if you're shooting this film, black and white film in general has a very wide exposure latitude, and you still might be able to retain some information in the shadows, but depending on how you want to shoot, that's the more important thing, what image you're wanting to get out. And I got out some really, really cool images. So yeah, I recommend getting a bunch of rolls of Kodak TMax 100, even TMax 400, putting it in your film bag, in your camera, in your fridge, and having fun with it. So now I'm going to end with my 4-part rating, just to kind of sum up and help you get an understanding more or less of what you might be able to use or how to use the film. So exposure latitude, 5 out of 5. Incredible exposure latitude. Very, very wide exposure latitude, underexposed and overexposed, obviously with intent. I think there are often occasions where it will save you because it has that wide exposure latitude, but also knowing that it has a wide exposure latitude and shooting with intentionality, you can get some incredible shots. Sharpness and clarity, 4 out of 5. It's steak knife sharp. Also that's also dependent on if you're nailing focus, if you're getting focus correctly. It's not only dependent on the film, it does also depend on your lens and the camera. But as far as the film that I've got, the images I got back from this film, incredibly sharp, and just the details are beautiful. Contrast, 3.5 out of 5. It's contrasty enough. It's not the most contrasty black and white film there is, but it is contrasty enough. And obviously the more you agitate it in development, or your lab agitates if you instruct them, the more agitation that you agitate the film, the more contrast you'll get, and the less agitation, the less contrast you'll get. So there's also that, if you develop yourself, experiment with that. But as all in all, I really enjoy the contrast I got on this film. And then just grain, Kodak says it's the finest 100 speed black and white film grain there is. I can't disagree, they're the professionals. My results have beautiful, very, very, very fine grain. Sometimes it's even indiscernible. So yeah, I guess they're correct. And yeah, that kind of sums it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'd love it if you could share some of your Kodak TMax 100 shots with me. Maybe on Instagram or Threads. You can just tag me or at me or whatever. And yeah, let's see some of those TMax shots. I'm going to be sharing, obviously I share my shots on Instagram and Threads, more so on Instagram. I do post them on Threads, but not as regularly. And I'll be sharing my 4-part rating, so you guys can download it if you want to keep it. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. As always, just keep making stuff and be blessed. And yeah, stick around for the next one that's coming, hopefully next week. I'm trying to get back to that. Darren out. Have a great weekend.